You're doing everything right. You're growing. You're changing. So why does it feel like you're dying? Why does becoming better feel like losing yourself? Here's what nobody told you about transformation. Real growth doesn't feel like victory. It feels like grief. And that's not a bug in the system. That's the system working exactly as it should. The ancient philosophers understood something that our self-help culture desperately wants to hide from you. Growth is painful always. Heraclitus said you cannot step into the same river twice, because both you and the river have changed. But what he didn't tell you is that the old you has to die for the new you to be born. And death, even the death of who you used to be, always hurts. Today, we're going to explore the ancient wisdom that explains why your transformation feels like loss, why letting go hurts so much, and why that pain is actually the price of becoming who you were meant to be. The death of self. Every caterpillar must dissolve completely before becoming a butterfly. Inside that cocoon, there is no gradual change. The caterpillar literally liquefies. It becomes nothing before it becomes something new. This is not a metaphor. This is biology, and it's also psychology. No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Jung understood that transformation requires destruction. You cannot build a new identity on top of an old one. The old self must be dismantled. The beliefs that once protected you must crumble. The habits that defined you must die. And here's what makes it so painful: you built that old self for a reason. It kept you safe. It helped you survive. That version of you served a purpose. Now you're asking yourself to kill it, to murder the very identity that got you this far. Is it any wonder it feels like grief? Is it any wonder your mind screams in resistance? You're not just changing habits. You're committing psychological suicide so a better version can be reborn. But here's what the ancients knew that we've forgotten. Familiar chains. There's a reason prisoners sometimes commit crimes right after being released. Freedom is terrifying when you've known nothing but walls. The Stoic philosopher Seneca observed something disturbing about human nature. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. We waste it clinging to what's familiar, even when familiar means suffering. Your comfort zone isn't comfortable, it's just known. And the human brain treats the known as safe, even when the known is slowly destroying you. That toxic relationship, familiar. That job that drains your soul, familiar. That limiting belief about your worth. You've carried it so long it feels like skin. Familiar is not safe. Growth demands you trade the known for the unknown, the certain for the uncertain, the predictable pain for the unpredictable possibility. If this ancient wisdom is resonating with something deep inside you, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of human transformation, because what comes next might explain everything you've been feeling. And this brings us to the hardest part of growth: mourning who you were. You will mourn versions of yourself that no longer exist. Read that again. You will attend funerals for people who are still alive, and that person is you. The you who believed in that dream. The you who loved that person. The you who thought life would turn out a certain way. Grief. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross identified the 5 stages of grief. And here's what nobody tells you: you go through these stages every time you truly grow. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Not just when someone dies, but when you die, when the old you dies, when your old beliefs die, when your old relationships die. The ancient Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They would imagine losing everything they loved, not to be morbid, but to prepare for the inevitable losses that growth demands. Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life. Each day the old you dies. Each day a new you is born. But we never learn to grieve properly, and unprocessed grief becomes resistance to change. The social price. Here's the truth that will hurt. Not everyone can come with you. Growth separates people. When you start to change, you become a mirror for everyone around you. Your growth reflects their stagnation. Your courage highlights their fear. Your transformation becomes an accusation they never asked for, and some people will hate you for it. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you remind them of who they could have been. Nietzsche understood this isolation. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. The tribe wants you to stay the same. The tribe needs you to stay the same, because if you can change, it means they could too. And that's a responsibility they are not ready to accept. So they'll call you arrogant. They'll say you've changed as if that's an insult. They'll try to remind you of who you used to be, hoping you'll shrink back into that smaller version. You cannot carry everyone with you into your next chapter. And losing people you love, that feels exactly like death, because it is. But there's something even harder than losing others. Identity vertigo. There's a moment in every transformation where you don't know who you are anymore. The old you is dead. The new you hasn't fully formed, and you're suspended in the void between identities. Who am I if I'm not who I was? This is terrifying. This is the dark night of the soul that mystics warned about. This is the chaos that precedes creation. Carl Jung called this the confrontation with the unconscious. He spent 6 years in this state after his break with Freud. 6 years where he didn't know if he was experiencing enlightenment or psychosis. In all chaos there is a cosmos. In all disorder a secret order. Most people run from this void. They grab onto any identity, even a worse one, just to escape the vertigo of not knowing who they are. They go back to the toxic relationship. They return to the soul-crushing job. They rebuild the prison because at least prison has walls. At least prison has definition. But here's what the ancient wisdom teaches. The void is not the enemy. The void is the womb. And what grows in darkness always reaches for light. River of change. Heraclitus of Ephesus understood something too. 500 years ago that neuroscience is just now confirming. No man ever steps in the same river twice. For it's not the same river and he's not the same man. You are not a thing. You are a process. You are not a noun. You are a verb. Every 7 years, nearly every cell in your body has been replaced. The you reading this shares almost no physical matter with the you from a decade ago. You're already dying and being reborn constantly. The only question is whether you'll do it consciously or unconsciously. Change is not optional. You cannot stop the river. You can only choose whether to flow with it or drown fighting it. The pain you feel when growing isn't the pain of something going wrong. It's the pain of resistance. It's the pain of trying to hold onto a version of yourself that the river has already carried away. You cannot step into yesterday, no matter how hard you try. The ancient philosophers didn't teach us to avoid change. They taught us to embrace it, and there's a specific practice they developed. Amor fati. The Stoics and Nietzsche converged on the same radical idea. Don't just accept your fate, love it. Amor fati. Love of fate, not tolerance, not resignation. Active, passionate love for everything that happens, including the losses, including the pain, including the deaths of who you used to be. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, wrote in his private journal, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together." He wasn't writing self-help. He was writing instructions to himself while managing an empire and fighting a plague. Nietzsche took this further. He imagined a demon who tells you that you must live your exact life, every pain, every loss, every transformation for eternity. Eternal return of everything. Would you curse the demon? Or would you say, this is exactly what I wanted? The pain of growth isn't a punishment. It's the fire that forges diamonds. The only question is whether you'll resist the burning or let it transform you. And this brings us to the deepest truth. Rebirth wisdom. Here's what the ancient wisdom keepers all understood. Every ending is a beginning wearing a disguise. What feels like loss is actually space being made for something greater. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. But attachment to what? Attachment to permanence in a universe that is fundamentally impermanent. Attachment to a fixed self in a reality where the self is constantly flowing. The pain of growth is not the pain of something being taken from you. It's the pain of your grip loosening on something that was never yours to keep. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. You were never meant to stay the same. The acorn doesn't mourn becoming an oak. The caterpillar doesn't grieve the wings. They surrender to the process. They trust the transformation. Trust the process. The pain you feel right now. It's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's the ancient price of becoming who you were always meant to be. And that brings us to the most important realization. Grief as gateway. Viktor Frankl walked out of Auschwitz having lost everything. His wife, his parents, his brother, his manuscript, his life's work. And yet, inside those camps, he discovered the most powerful truth about human transformation. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. The grief you feel when growing is not your enemy. It's your teacher. It's telling you that something mattered. It's honoring what you're leaving behind while making space for what's coming. Loss is the doorway to expansion. Every person who achieved greatness walked through this door. Every philosopher whose wisdom still echoes through millennia stood where you're standing now, confused, grieving, wondering if they were breaking or breaking through. The wound is the place where the light enters you. That's Rumi, 13th century. Still true, your pain is not a problem to be solved. It's a passage to be honored. The ancient initiations all included symbolic death because the elders knew you cannot become who you're meant to be until you release who you were. But how do you actually do this? The ancient price. The universe operates on exchange. Nothing is free, not even your own evolution. Growth costs something. The price of becoming who you're meant to be is releasing who you've been. The price of new relationships is sometimes old ones. The price of new beliefs is the comfort of certainty. The price of expansion is the death of limitation. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. This is not pessimism. This is liberation. Once you understand that loss is built into growth, you stop being surprised by it. You stop thinking something is wrong. You stop resisting the very process that's trying to elevate you. The ancient philosophers didn't promise a pain-free life. They promise something better, a meaningful one. The caterpillar doesn't know it's becoming a butterfly. It just surrenders to the dissolution. It trusts the process even when the process feels like death. Because on the other side of that death, wings, flight, a perspective it could never have imagined while crawling. So here's the truth. The ancient philosophers spent their lives trying to teach us. Real growth feels like loss because it is loss. It's the loss of who you were. The loss of what felt safe, the loss of people who couldn't grow with you, the loss of beliefs that once protected you but now imprison you. And this loss is not a failure. It's the price of admission to a bigger life. Heraclitus told us we can't step in the same river twice. The Stoics taught us to love our fate, even the painful parts. Jung showed us that darkness precedes every dawn. Frankl proved that meaning can be found in the deepest suffering. They all understood what social media self-help refuses to admit. Transformation hurts always, but here's the secret they also knew. The pain doesn't last, the growth does, the grief fades, the expansion remains. The loss was temporary, who you become is permanent. The pain is not a sign you are broken. It is the ancient price of becoming whole. If you made it this far, comment Phoenix Rising if you're ready to embrace the fire of your own transformation. The wisdom of the ages is yours now. Use it well. If this unlocked something in you, subscribe for more wisdom that transforms.